buried in an avalanche for 3 days. A Lakota chief dug her out and gave her breath back. The rifle was still in my hand when the mountain came down. I remember that. Not the sound, there was no sound, not the way you'd expect. One moment the pass was quiet, just the hard creak of snow settling in the cold, and the next the whole north face folded and I was under it. I had been tracking a wounded elk 2 days up from winter camp. I remember the rifle, the weight of it, the cold brass of the hammer guard against my palm. Then white. Then nothing. They tell you a man can think inside an avalanche. That is true. What they don't tell you is that the thinking is useless. The snow packs around you like iron. You cannot tell which way is up. I moved my face enough to make a small pocket of air, but I could not tell you how I knew to do that. Some older part of me knew. I could not move my legs. One arm, the right one, was twisted back and my shoulder burned. The rifle was gone. I lay in the dark and I breathed very carefully, because breathing was the only thing left to do that had any use. My name is Standing Hawk. I had been chief of our band for 11 years, and before that I had fought in 4 wars against men who wanted our land. I had buried a wife and 2 sons, one in childbirth, one from a fever the winter the missionaries came. I was 53 years old that autumn, and I was not afraid of dying. That is the honest thing to say. I was not afraid of it. I was just not ready to be done yet, which is different. I counted the hours by how cold I got and how slow my breathing became. By the 2nd day, I stopped counting. The woman's name was Cora Briggs. She was not Lakota. She was not young. She was not anyone I had ever spoken to, though I had seen her once at the Dawson Creek trading post the previous spring. A tall woman with reddish-gray hair pinned back hard, wearing a man's coat that was too big for her, and doing her own dickering at the counter for seed flour and lamp oil. Her husband had died of a kicked-in chest 6 months before that, his horse rolling on him in a creek crossing. She was working his claim alone. That was the word around the post. The other settlers talked about it, the way people talk about a strange thing they've decided to ignore. I had not thought of her again after that day. She told me later she had been up in the pass looking for her bay mare, which had gotten loose during the night. The mare had come up onto the high shelf, following some old grazing route, and Cora had followed her. She heard nothing, she said. She just saw the freshness of the slide, the broken face glitter of it, the thrown timber, the wrong shape of the hillside. She had some experience with snow. She had come from Minnesota, she said, which she seemed to think explained everything. She started to dig. She did not know I was in there. She told me that plainly, weeks later, sitting across a fire from me in a way that left no room for me to make it into more than it was. She said she dug because the slide was fresh and there was a chance someone was under it, and she was not the kind of woman to walk past that chance. She had her mare's lead rope, her knife, and a short-handled camp axe she carried for firewood. That was all. She dug for 3 hours before she found the tip of my boot. The first thing I knew of her was a sound. Not words, just sound, a rhythmic thud and scrape that came through the packed snow like something heard through stone walls. It was faint. I had stopped moving by then. I don't know how much time had passed since I'd given up counting. The cold had gotten into my chest in a way that felt permanent, and my thoughts had gone slow and strange, not painful, just dim, the way a lamp goes when the oil's almost out. But the sound. I made myself breathe, just that, breathe. I could not dig toward it. I could barely flex my fingers. But I breathed deliberately, making whatever small warmth I could, because something alive was coming. Then light hit my boot. Then the snow above my face shifted and broke apart, and I saw sky, flat gray sky and blowing snow, and a woman's face above me, not a face I knew, red with cold and set hard, and she said, "You alive?" I said something, I don't know what. She said, "Don't try to move, you're iced." She dug me out over the next hour. I felt things come back into my limbs that felt worse than the cold, had blood returning to places that had forgotten it. At some point she propped me half upright against a buried log, and I saw her, tall, breath steaming, that oversized coat dark with sweat down the back. She had been working harder than most men I'd known. Her hands were bleeding where the axe handle had worn through her gloves. She got my arms working first, then my legs. I had frostbite on 3 toes. I found this out later. My shoulder was not broken, only wrenched. She knew the difference. She felt along the bone with both hands, not asking permission, and told me in a flat voice what she found. "Can you walk?" she said. "Yes," I said, which was not entirely true. She did not argue. She helped me up. Her camp was 2 miles down the east face, a stone ring fire, a canvas lean to angled against the wind, the bay mare tied to a pine. It was modest. She had what she needed and not much else. She built the fire up and got me close to it and stripped off my upper layers the way you strip a sick man, efficient, not unkind. And she checked my shoulder again in the firelight and wrapped it tight with a strip she tore from something in her pack. I did not speak much that first evening. There was not much to say that wasn't obvious. I was alive because of this woman. She had chosen to dig and had dug long enough, and that was the whole of it. She made coffee. She had real coffee, which surprised me, beans still in the bag, ground rough with the back of her axe head in a flat stone hollow. She handed me a tin cup and sat across the fire from me with her own, and she looked at me straight, the way people in that country rarely did, and I looked back. She was not soft. I want to be clear about that. There was nothing soft in her face or her hands or the way she moved, nothing that asked for your pity or your protection. She was just a woman who had decided something and done it, and now she was sitting with the result. There was a quality to her. I had seen it in warriors, in the best ones, a quality of not flinching from what was true. Her husband was dead. The claim was hers now. The pass was dangerous, and she had gone up it anyway because the mare was worth the risk. I had been buried and she had dug me out. All true, none of it soft. "You're Standing Hawk," she said. It was not a question. "Yes. I've heard of you." "What did you hear?" She looked at the fire a moment. "That you keep your word. That you've held the boundary on the northern grazing 3 years running without a fight." I said nothing. "That's more than most men down here can say," she said. It was a simple thing to say. I don't know why it landed the way it did. 11 years of leading, of holding the band together through years when the government changed its mind twice, and the buffalo numbers fell, and the young men got restless and the old men got afraid. 11 years of it. And most of the settlers in that valley treated me like a problem they were waiting to see the end of. One woman I had never spoken to digs me out of a mountain and tells me across a fire that she has heard I keep my word. As if that were the whole of it. As if that were enough. It was enough. That's the strange thing, it was. We did not talk much after that. She showed me where the extra blankets were. She had 2, both thin, but she gave me one without being asked, and she put more wood on and she said, "We'll go down in the morning if your legs hold." "They'll hold," I said. "All right." She lay down on her side of the fire and she was asleep inside of 5 minutes, the way people who work hard sleep, completely, without ceremony. I sat up a while longer, my shoulder tight, the heat getting back into my bones slowly. The mare shifted in the dark. Wind moved in the pines above us. I thought about the dark under the snow. I thought about the moment the light came and her face was above me. There had been no expression of heroism in it, nothing performed. She had just looked at me and asked if I was alive, the way you ask a question whose answer still matters. I slept finally. I slept better than I had in a year. She walked down with me in the morning. My legs held, as I had said. The right one was stiff and I was slower than I wanted to be, but I did not lean on her, and she did not offer. We went side by side on the trail, the mare following on the lead, and the sun came up over the eastern ridge and hit the snow, and the whole pass went white and sharp. At the fork where the trail split south toward the valley settlements, west toward winter camp, she stopped. She looked at me, not searching, not asking, just looking with that quality she had, that plain directness. "Thank you," I said, which was insufficient, I knew it. I said it anyway. She nodded once. You'd have done it. I would have. That was the true thing, and she knew it, and the knowing of it between us. Two people who understood what obligation meant, who carried their word the same way, was its own kind of conversation. She turned south, I turned west. I looked back once. She was already 50 yards down the trail, the mare walking beside her, moving with that long, steady stride, not looking back. A woman going about what was hers to do. 2 weeks later, I rode to her claim. I had reasons. Practical ones. She was alone on that land, and there were men in the valley that winter who had been watching the unclaimed timber on the east edge of her property, and I had heard talk at the post. I told myself it was practical. It might even have been. But I saddled my horse at first light and rode 2 hours, and that is not a thing a man does for purely practical reasons, and I knew it by the time I got there. She was at the woodpile when I came into the yard. She looked up. She did not look surprised to see me. You need something, she said. Some of your neighbors have been talking about the East Timber, I said. There are 2 of them in particular you should know about. I can tell you their names. She set down the axe. She wiped her hands on her coat. Come in, she said. I'll put coffee on. Inside was plain. A table, 2 chairs, a stove, shelves with what she needed. A rifle over the door, well maintained. A photograph on the mantel, a man I supposed was her husband, younger than she'd be now, unsmiling the way people were in photographs then. I didn't look at it long. She told me about the East Timber, what she knew and what she'd suspected. I told her what I knew. We talked for an hour, direct and without pretense, and when there was nothing more to say about the timber, I stayed anyway, and she poured more coffee and we talked about other things. The condition of the pass, the winter coming, a dispute about water rights in the South Valley that was going to come to something bad before spring. She had opinions and they were considered, and she listened to mine the same way. When I stood to go, she said, "You can come back." Just that. No softness in it, no invitation dressed in something else. Just a plain statement from a woman who meant what she said and said what she meant. I will, I said. I came back a week after that, and a week after that. The winter was long and cold, and I had things at camp that needed my attention, duties I could not neglect, but I found I was measuring the weeks by the ride to her place the way you measure long work by the rest at the end of it. The men who had been watching her timber came once, on a Tuesday in November, 2 of them on horses, riding slow past the east fence the way men ride when they want you to know they're looking. She was at the fence when they came, which was not an accident. She stood there and looked at them, and they looked at her, and they rode on. They did not come back. She told me about it when I came the following week. She told it plainly, nothing added. I said, "You should have sent word." She looked at me steadily. "I handled it." "I know you handled it. I'm saying you can send word." There was a pause. The stove ticked. Outside the wind was picking up. She said, "I'm not used to that." To what? Someone to send word to. It was a small thing to say, and she said it quietly, and she looked at me when she said it without any performance in it, just the plain truth of it. A woman alone for a long time, who had learned to carry everything herself, telling me that she could see a different way now, that I could be that she'd thought about it. I had not felt necessary to anyone in a long time. Not needed in the deep way, not the way you're needed by people who have decided they trust you with the weight of a real thing. My band needed me, yes, but there is a difference between being a chief and being this. Being the man a particular woman looks at across a room and decides she can rely on, that she wants to, that she's choosing to. I stood up from the chair. I crossed the room. She didn't move, she just watched me come, that direct look, not asking, not waiting to be swept anywhere. I put my hands on her shoulders, which were strong and real, and she put one hand flat on my chest over the place my heart was, and she looked at me. "I keep my word," I said. "I know that," she said, "that's why." We did not have an easy life after that, and I will not tell it like we did. There were people on both sides who had a problem with us. There were cold seasons and a drought year, and one summer a fever went through the camp, and I lost an elder I had known since boyhood. Cora lost the East Timber section in a bad court ruling, a judge who had been bought. We both knew it, and there was nothing to do but absorb it and rebuild. What I will say is this: I was not a man who had expected anything else from life. I had been given what I was given, and I had carried it. I had not thought, not after my wife died, not after my sons, not after the years of treaty talk that meant nothing. I had not thought there was something like this still waiting. A woman who treated my word like it was solid, like it was the thing she was building on. Who did not look past me toward something younger or easier. Who had dug me out of a mountain not because she knew me, but because she was the kind of woman who digs, and had then looked across a fire at what she'd found, and decided it was worth keeping. There is something a man cannot manufacture for himself, no matter how capable he is, no matter how long he endures. It has to come from outside. Someone has to see it and name it and stand by it. Cora did that. She did it plain, without flourish, without needing anything from me except exactly what I was already. That's the gift of it. Not that she softened me or saved me or fixed anything. She looked at me. All of me, the age of me, the grief of me, the chief of me and the tired man of me. And she stood in the yard that morning when I rode up for the second time, already knowing why I was there even if I was still half telling myself it was practical, and she said, "Come in. I'll put coffee on." The last winter we had together, she got sick in February. A chest sickness, the kind that settles in and doesn't easily leave. I brought one of our healers, an old woman named Grass Woman who had no patience for stubbornness and patience, and Grass Woman and Cora argued in two languages about what Cora would and wouldn't drink, and by March she was up again. She outlived me. That is how it went. I want to say that clearly. I am old now, or was old, and this is the account of a man looking back. She was at my side the last years the way she had been all those winters, not hovering ever, just present, working her claim in the mornings, riding out sometimes to the east fence still, though the east timber was long gone, sitting across from me in the evenings. She had a way of reaching across the table sometimes and putting her hand over mine. Not a soft thing, just a solid thing, her hand over mine, weight and warmth of it. And I would look at her and she would look at me, and whatever had needed to be said between us had been said many times over, and so neither of us said anything. We just sat in the knowing of it. I think about that now, the hand. After 3 days in the dark under that mountain, after the cold that had gotten into my chest like something permanent, after everything I had buried and carried, she dug me out and put her hand over mine across a table, and the whole account came out even. That is the whole of it. That is what I have to say.